from the Xfinity Studios at WVON. We're your original social media. You're listening to Let's Get to Work with Teresa Deer on 1690, The Talk of Chicago.
She can't knock the hustle.
But until the late thing, I'm the one who's crazy. 'Cause that's the way you're making me feel.
She can't knock the hustle.
I'm just trying to get mine. I don't have the time to knock the hustle for
Real. Hey, yeah. You lunching, punching the clock. My function is to make munchin', lay back munchin', sipping Remy on the
Good
rap.
morning, Chicago. I'm Jason William Johnson, Director of the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the Chicago Urban League, and I'll be your host this morning for the Let's Get to Work show. I'd like to give a special shout out to Teresa Deer, the regular host of the show, as well as Andrew Wells, my colleague at the Chicago Urban League, for giving me an opportunity to host in his absence this morning. We're going to have an amazing show. Today, we're going to have a candid conversation about opportunities and challenges for African Americans in the technology sector. We're going to talk about the joys and struggles of black entrepreneurs in tech, as well as career barriers and opportunities in the technology industry. Joining me for this conversation this morning is an amazing group of leaders and entrepreneurs in the technology industry in Chicago. During the first half of the show, we'll talk about black tech entrepreneurship. Joining me for that conversation to be James Parker, founder of Best Date Night and Entrepreneurship and Innovation Program Manager at the Chicago Urban League. JP, what up?
What's up, Jay? I'll take Jay-Z real quick.
Okay, I know, right? Take his money. JP's going to kind of fill a dual role this morning. Mm-hmm. He's going to help me co-host. He'll serve as a guest for this first segment, and then he's also going to help them sweep the floor when we finish. You know, he's going to be doing a little bit of everything. So in addition to JP, we'll also have Jeff Beckham, CEO of Black Box Creative, for the first portion. Then on the second half of the show, we're going to talk about jobs in the technology industry. And joining us for that discussion to be Paul Johnson, Executive Director of the Computer Training Institute of Chicago, and James Manning, Curriculum Developer and Trainer for Miller Welding Automation. If you would like to join the conversation, feel free to call in at 773-591-1690. That's 773-591-1690. We'll try to take a few calls before the end of the show. So without further ado, let's get right into the first half of the show. With me right now is Jeff Beckham and James Parker. How you guys doing this morning?
I'm good, man.
Doing well.
Glad to be here.
Awesome. Glad to have you guys on board. Glad to have you on the show. Two successful tech entrepreneurs in the city of Chicago and civic leaders. So before we get started, why don't you guys each just tell them a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Jeff Beckham, founder of Black Box Creative, which is a digital marketing agency. We basically help companies achieve their goals using technology, to put it shortly. We work with a lot of different organizations and businesses around the Chicago area, some legendary ones like Trinity United Church of Christ and Link Unlimited Scholars, but also some new legendary ones like the Cafe, which is the Cleveland Avenue Foundation for Education, founded by Don and Liz Thompson. So we've had the opportunity to help organizations grow, develop, grow revenue, bring jobs to the city, and I'm glad to be here with you, Jason, this morning.
All right. Also, shout out to the rest of my Impact 444 cohort.
Yes, sir.
Impact Leadership Development Program. Jeff's one of my cohort members in that. So, JP, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely.
I know you've been on the show a couple of times. We've both been on the show a couple of times. So,
Absolutely. First of all, great to be back here. Great to be working alongside Jeff Beckham and these other fine, distinguishing brothers. Got into technology when I was in 8th grade. Went to high school in Minnesota, and we were one of the few schools that had computers that taught programming moons ago. And so I've always liked technology, and more recently launched an app called Best Date Night, kind of the first app that creates date nights for couples, and have just loved entrepreneurship, loved it, and excited to be a part of the entrepreneurship, the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the Chicago Urban League, and of course work with you, Jason. So very excited to be here and very excited to talk technology, because I believe it's bigger than we think it is, but it can be so much more as well.
And James is the only African-American person I know who can speak German on the south side of Chicago.
Yeah,
at least that I've ran into. Every once in a while, he'll introduce himself to people. He'll be like, oh, so whatever. And then, it's like it throws you off. So pretty much, you guys, as myself as well, all black tech entrepreneurs, what's some of the challenges you guys have faced regarding funding, getting clients, customers, scaling the business? What's some of the challenges you guys have faced?
I mean, man, you named them. I think the customer issue isn't as much of an issue in my business. I mean, everybody needs digital marketing these days, whether it's a website or social media help or inbound and lead generation. You need what I'm able to provide. That's not as difficult. What is more difficult is really trying to grow and scale the business, and that's difficult for a couple reasons. Capital, and we have this conversation often. The capital that's out there doesn't always promote true inclusion, meaning that almost like the new form of redlining, there's systemic reasons put in place why you as an African American owned business or startup can't get capital. I've seen it where working in Silicon Valley, where I've seen people that aren't people of color walk in with a PowerPoint and walk out with $1 million, where you have people like yourselves, Jason, you, Convo, JP, Best Date Night, you guys going with fully functional applications with people using them, actual customers, right? Revenue positive, and can't get 100,000, can't get 10,000. And so the capital piece is definitely an issue. The other issue is finding people to do the work for me. Like, as I grow to scale, I want to hire people from my community. My goal has always been to grow this thing and to serve my community. I'm a Bronzeville resident, but the greater Chicago South and West Sides in particular, who need exactly what I'm able to provide, but I also want to hire from that community as well. And it's difficult finding some of the pipeline that I've looked for to hire with the specific skill sets that I need. And so I know we're going to talk about the education piece later, but that's a key part of this. It's like, in order to for us to grow to scale, we have to have people truly educated with the skill sets to do what we need them to do.
Absolutely. And JP, well, how about yourself?
Yeah, I would say definitely the biggest thing for Best Date Night has been the funding. I mean, I've walked in, I've pitched, you see me.
You nice too. You got some bars. I've seen you. Yeah.
And I've had investors say, "Hey, we love it. We want to be a part of it, but can you launch it some more?" I mean, it's like, even though it's already out there, we've been featured in the media already, Tribune. I mean, they're talking about it already. And but I think a lot of it happened. I think when you're new to it and when they're not familiar with it, and then other stuff like Jeff was saying, systemic, just kind of. Yeah, we haven't really seen that. I mean, I've seen people get funding for ideas where I'm like, what? And I don't knock anyone's dream or goal, but part of it, I'm like, it's not even going to bring in any money. We're already making money, but to them it was like, well, we need to see this amount of money coming in, and so part of it just led me to say, all right, I'm just going to work that much more harder to launch it myself. And then once it's launched, I won't need your money. But also, I think we also need to figure out a way to come within the community. I mean, there are a lot of black millionaires in Chicago, and we just need to figure out how do we get them in a room and we say, hey, listen, here's how we can change this. All right, so we're not going over here to ask for some money, but we can come to you and we can show you what we're doing, and you give us the money, and then we grow it that way. We can create our own. Our own with funding sources within our communities. I mean, within the community.
I completely agree. I know in 2016 at the league, we did an angel investor training for high net worth African American individuals, trying to get some of them in to learn how to invest in tech, how to identify good deals, so that we can get some infusion of capital in a lot of these African American tech startups. But we found that the issue was a lot of them weren't interested. We had more startup founders there than actual potential angel investors. I think, Jeff, you were there as well. So that's definitely a challenge as well. And then also the whole aspect of the way tech companies are funded. When you talk about friends and family around first, they typically want to see that. Yeah. Then they want to see, then you start getting into your seed capital. Then you start getting into your series as far as your venture capital funding. But the issue with a lot of us is we don't have those rich uncles. And if we have those rich uncles or rich cousins, they don't necessarily want to invest. So how can we overcome some of those challenges? I know there's some opportunities with equity crowdfunding, and there's some other ways. So how have you guys gotten creative about creating capital for yourself? Because you've had to bootstrap these things on your own.
Well, I mean, I think I was fortunate, I had family who did help out, and I think that was the part that bothered me. You know what I mean?
The German side?
Yeah, I know, right? Meine Deutsch friends, yeah. And so that was disappointing to actually have money in, have funding, and still not get that. But I think we're also a detriment to ourselves, because I think other groups, other investors look and they say, well, if African American millionaires aren't putting money in, then why should we put money in? Mm-hmm. And I think we've got to figure out how to overcome that part, because I think we're watched more closely than we think we are. Mm-hmm. And I think if we can, it's kind of like it goes back to this meme. Obviously, you don't know if it was real. Abraham Lincoln didn't do it, but the idea was Chris Rock was like, hey, when I first started out in comedy, I had a jalopy, I had a hoopty, and it would stop on me. And when I would wave my hand like, can someone help me, cars would just drive by me. But when I got out of the car and tried to push it myself, cars would just pull over. Hey, you need some help? You need some help? I think once they see in our community that, hey, I just put $1 million in Jeff's company and it blew up to $125 million. Hey, I just put $1 million in James's company and it blew up to $35 million. I put $1 million, now they're like, well, for one, we already know that, hey, Jeff now can say, hey, listen, now I'm about to invest in about 3 companies. And then James says, hey, I'm about to invest in a couple companies. Now other people are going to start seeing that and be like, all right, man, we need to get in there. It's the same thing with real estate. People weren't buying into Inglewood till they saw that it was hey, this is about to come up. And now a good friend was at Inglewood. She said she was the only black woman at this auction. Everybody else was white buying in Inglewood. Why? Because they started seeing value because we were already there. Mm-hmm. I think once people start seeing what we're doing and it's growing that way, trust me, it'll just start coming in even more so.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I think that's really key. I think it's also, helping people understand the amount of risk in tech as well, mm-hmm. and the amount of risk that's not there. Some of the perceived risk that is there really isn't accurate. So that comes with education and kind of getting in front of those older investors that may look for more traditional instruments, right, to say this is an opportunity to diversify your portfolio, mm-hmm. and you need to get in. If you're not getting in now, we're late now, yeah, coming to the table. So, mm-hmm. we need to get in and get you actively involved. Yeah. I have so many friends that are high net worth individuals or people that are looking to invest in different things. And to your point, Jay, they're going right to real estate. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, we want to buy property. Well, that's cool. Right. But this is an opportunity for you, too, to invest in revenue-positive businesses that will give you that 8 to 10% yield that you're looking for in your investment. So it is really key to do some of that educational piece and to have platforms like the Urban League, right, that will highlight and feature people of color that are developing, successful, mm-hmm. Well thought out, well vetted startups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. So one of the things, I'm an alumni of Power Moves. I was part of the Miami class. Power Moves is the largest African American and founder of color boot camp and showcase in the country. A lot of amazing companies that came out of Power Moves. But one of the things that they emphasized with us was the ability to self-accelerate. Self-accelerating meaning, ensuring that you have a viable business model, that you're acquiring capital, that you're getting customers, and all of those different things. Both of you guys have been very successful at self-accelerating. Could you share some of your best practices and some of the things that you've done to be successful at doing so?
Yeah, so my background is actually in sales. I did corporate sales and marketing for Quest, LabCorp, a company called Atlas Medical, Sanofi Aventis, and a few other larger pharma companies. So I was actually really fortunate to have this very well thought out, well structured training for years. The Zig Ziglars, SSD models, integrity selling models, I've done all of those. So I was able to bring that to the table for the business. And so even before I really knew what I was doing in terms of structure, I didn't have an accountant, I didn't have a lawyer. I was able to get customers because I knew how to talk feature benefit. Mm-hmm. And that's something even now that when I'm working with customers, I train them on that, how to talk feature benefit, how to talk, value. What is a unique value proposition of your application, mm-hmm. or your company or your nonprofit? And in doing so, I was able to, really kind of grow a revenue base without having to go get outside funding. I was like JP, fortunate enough to have a family that supported. My parents had a little money. They were able to kind of help when waters got rocky. But I've never had to go to a bank and never had to go to an outside lender because I can sell. Now, what do I train? Again, back to that point. When I sit down with folk, we tell them you have to talk feature benefit. And that's something that we're really good at Black Box Creative. We can tell you, here's what we're able to do. Here's the benefit that it's going to provide you. And here's how you're going to achieve your unique business goal by working with us. And it works. And we're able to bring clients to the door. So
I think the same way. My background is in sales, too. I worked for a communications company years ago. And so with Best Day Night, and then contacts. I think a lot of times it depends on your network. You've heard the phrase, your network is your net worth. And I was fortunate enough to, years ago, run the Shark Bar restaurant back in the day. And
I ain't either.
yeah, and met a ton of people. So when I got ready to launch something, I just made a phone call. So I was on NBC5. So for me, it was a gift of gab. I could sell you my dream, and once you bought into my dream, I was on radio, I was on TV. So that's how really I was able to acquire people downloading the app. When we did our beta test, the apps would sell out, the date nights would sell out. And so part of it is having a viable network that you can use to help you get to where you have to go. I mean, our community is our masters at making things happen when we have to make it happen ourselves. And I think we can continue to do that. But pretty much just having a sales background and being able to get in there helped a lot.
Real quick, I think there's a key point in that I hope you guys heard out of that. Like all of that skill and training that you're currently getting right now in your job, whatever you're doing, you can bring that to the table when you launch your business, whether it's selling pharmaceuticals or managing Shark Bar. And the network of the people that you're meeting right now can help you down the road. So if you guys are listening out there, whatever you're doing, whatever it is, don't think that it's for naught. It is definitely something that you can use in your future.
Absolutely. Real quick, one of the clients that I coach at work, I told her, I said, "Who are your resources? Who do you know?" And I said, "You need to host a resource party." I said, "You basically have some people over, you have your PowerPoint, you have some wine, some cheese, and you find out who knows who. And you find out and you try to get advocates for your company and for what you want to do." And she just started writing. I mean, literally before we were done, she had about 50 names down that she could call that could have potential resources to help her get her business to the next level.
That's a good point. So you guys mentioned resources. You mentioned, utilizing your networks. And one of the things that we found and several studies have shown is part of the reason there's a lot of disparities with black entrepreneurs versus white firms in general, in addition to some of the institutional issues that we are facing, are deficits in the 3 M's, which they call money, markets, and management. Management, knowing how to manage a business, having access to those mentors that can give you guidance to help you accelerate your path, as opposed to making those mistakes that keep you moving a little slower because we don't have access to those networks, right? Markets, again, having individuals who can introduce you to new customers, new opportunities. A big opportunity for African Americans in tech, and we was actually consulting a good friend of mine, Thomas Stovall of Candid Microfeedback, is procurement. Understanding the whole procurement process. And leveraging that, because a lot of these private and public companies are looking for innovative products and services. They're not just looking for traditional professional services anymore, because they need technology in order to give them a competitive advantage over their competitors. And last but not least, we talked about money, right? So as we think about the 3 M's, management, markets, and money, what are some good resources you guys recommend that people can take advantage of if they're launching a company, be it a tech startup or whatever? What are like some organizations, and besides the amazing Chicago Urban League Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, of course, what are some other organizations and resources people could take advantage of?
Well, I always go to Blue 1647, of course. They have a wealth of classes that you can take, everything from learning how to code and build it yourself to selling classes and how to pitch. Of course, 1871 down at the Merchandise Mart. You can go there as well for a lot of different things that they're hosting, and they have that happens every day. The Women's Business Development Center, they have tons of things that happen. You wouldn't believe it, and they do offer opportunities to men. I actually did a lender matchmaking thing there a couple years back that was really helpful, and they have some amazing stuff. And then there's Chicago Neighborhood Business Development Centers. I think there's 40 to 50 that are out there. Actually, I'm part of one. I run one in Bronzeville called MS Bark, and so we cover Bronzeville, Woodlawn, part of Hyde Park, in North Kenwood, where we actually offer business support services as well for people trying to start and grow. And you can find out where your local neighborhood business development center is by going to the Chicago's BACP, Business Affairs and Consumer Protection website, and they'll show you where your local business development center is. So there's a bunch of resources.
Yeah, and I was actually say Ms. Bark as well. And it's like, I was like, man, you just took what I was going to say. You took all that.
Jeff took them all.
I know, right? You took the Urban League. You took the Urban League. But I think too, for the couch engineer, Eventbrite has. You could Google Eventbrite, and there's classes. I mean, on everything. YouTube. First, you want to educate yourself on what you want to do. I think as far as the network and management, I've shared this at the 100 Black Men with the youth. I forgot what it was called, about how when I first started in technology, there weren't a lot of mentors, you know what I mean? And I got into trouble and made some mistakes, you know, but finding a good mentor, life coaches are real.
Yeah.
I mean, you need one, and business coaches are even more real, especially if you're starting a business. So find someone who's doing business, find someone who's doing that, and pick their brains. And I think those are some big resources. Other people, you can find them; they're out there if you look for it.
And I'm Black in Tech. I can't forget I'm Black in Tech.
Right.
Got to go there.
All right, so we're going to go into a commercial break, and we'll be back shortly. And we're back. Jason William Johnson, the Let's Get to Work show. Going into the second half of the show, with me now is Paul Johnson, Executive Director of the Computer Training Institute of Chicago, and James Manning, the Curriculum Developer and Trainer for Miller Welding Automation. How are you guys doing this morning?
Hey, great.
Awesome.
Doing good.
Thanks for you guys for coming out. I know you gentlemen pretty well. I'm looking forward to this amazing conversation we're about to have. So if you don't mind, tell the listeners a little bit about what each of you do.
Okay. Well, I am a curriculum developer and trainer for Miller Welding Automation. We build systems, robotic systems, for automation, so for companies that are looking to automate and build expand their capacity. We sell the robots. They send those guys in to me, and I train them how to program the robots. So whether it's standard MIG welding, aluminum, TIG, all type of features. So that's pretty much what I do. So
How long have you been doing that?
I've been doing this for 6 years.
Okay, how did you get into it originally?
Well, I came from, it's funny, I was a trainer for Siemens Automation for several years, worked with Underwriters Laboratory, but I was at Kendall College in DeVry, and when I walked in and interviewed, what they said is that we can teach you how to weld and program the robot. What we need is a trainer. And so that's what I did, and my profession is instructional design, training. So it doesn't make a difference what the application, software, or subject is. I know how to write training, and that's what they wanted.
Okay, and Paul, tell them a little bit about what you do at CTIC.
Yeah, absolutely. So Paul Johnson, Program Director, Founder of Computer Training Institute of Chicago. And what we focus on is industry-recognized certifications in all areas of IT, business, creative arts, and health IT. Mm-hmm. And I got started, I was working with the educational department at Motorola. And we used to do training on internal training. Motorola has their own university for project management, networking, and eventually just started my own company. And I wanted to be able to bring those tech skills that I knew were, really growing and expanding in the market into, our community and do it in a way where it's affordable and accessible for everybody.
Awesome. So, we're going to get right into the conversation. According to diversity data at some of the nation's top tech firms, African employees only make up 1% to 2% of the entire staff. Apple has 7%, but these positions are mostly in the retail stores. What are some steps that we can take to prepare people for jobs in technology? What do you think about that, Paul?
I was definitely, you want to get them started as early as possible. Mm-hmm. So there's a ton of programs around the city of Chicago. And a lot of them have really, really good funding, but there's a lack of minority participation in a lot of these youth programs. Even organizations like Black Girls Code here in Chicago, they're doing a great job, but it would be great to see more young sisters and Latino women or just people in need out, as well as Brave Initiatives. Yep. It's a program run by Jen Kamens and Anna Bethune that they run for girls. That's a great program. We have a summer program called Tech Men that we do mentoring, but there's a ton of them. I mean, I could go on and on. But the idea is you want to get your young people started as soon as possible. I mean, if you just Google, young or youth programs or look into some of the STEM programs, I think that's important that we get a head start, because what's happening in other cultures is that it's a way of life. You have kids that are in junior high school already developing apps on their own because there's so much free information online. So you want to get your young people started as early as possible. I think that's important.
Absolutely. And James, we were talking right before the show started in the break room regarding welding engineers and the lack of welding engineers, not only African American, but just welding engineers, period. Could you kind of talk about some of that as far as how many welding engineers are graduating, what some of the top schools they're graduating from, and some of the opportunities to get involved in, doing welding, automation, welding engineering, and all of those good things?
Yeah, sure. So one of the issues with welding is that it has this reputation of being a dirty, grimy job, but that is changing, and what's the problem is that no one realizes it. And so when you go to college, everyone says, I want to be an engineer, but they think mechanical and electrical software. But welding engineering is one of those areas that is underutilized, and especially with African Americans. I was just looking at some paperwork last night. Ohio State has one of the bigger welding engineering programs, but they graduate about 22 to 23 welders a year. In the last 7 years, only 2 of them have been African American. Weber State is another one out in Utah. And very few, I don't believe they have any African Americans to come through that program in the last decade. And so it's one of those areas because out of the millions of engineers that we produce every year, we're only producing about 80. So these guys are graduating with jobs. They're walking out with jobs, some of them in their junior year. I know that's what we do. We identify these engineers their junior year, and we start targeting them. And so it's one of those areas where I believe, again, is getting youth involved and letting them know that this exists, that there is opportunity there, and make them connected to the actual the products that we build, all of the things that we do, is that there's someone behind that that's developing that stuff. You love your phone, you love the Netflix, and you love all of these things, but you're not connected to the fact that there's someone behind it making it. And I think that's where the opportunity is missed to introduce young African Americans to this technology, is to basically get them connected to it in a way that's, just not, from the peripheral. You just, I'm on my phone, I have a good game and things like that. It's like, no, you can actually build this thing.
Mm-hmm. Paul, you train hundreds of people each year in different areas of IT, different certifications, things of that nature. What's some of the hot career areas in technology right now, and how can people get involved in those?
I would say the top 3 are project management, security in any area, whether it's software security or network security, and coding. And the reason for that, obviously, when we start out with the first one, you have to know how to manage not only your business, but any project. Any new product or service is very important when you think about the deliverable times, what's happening in the market, especially when markets and trends tend to change so quickly. It's critical to be really on top of project management. From a security standpoint, we all know what happened with Equifax and all of these other companies. I mean, for a company to lose millions of dollars, literally companies can go out of business. So for them to pay you $200,000 a year is really nothing. Mm-hmm. You'd be shocked at how much you can make with security in any field, whether it's software security, network security, OS security. Coding is to me, it's like learning ABCs right now for people coming up or in any field that you're in. Because the reason for that is that as technology changes, what's not changing is the code that creates it. Different things happen, and technology tends to evolve from one point to the next. But what's always behind it is the coding piece. And so if you learn coding, you're able to capitalize as a new trend comes about, as there's a new technology change where you can now come up with a solution or a service. Whereas before, this would happen like every 100 years, the Industrial Revolution, gold mining, the computers coming. Now it's like every 3 years, there's something new and it's something different.
Not even that long. It's like every 2 years, a whole new innovation and everything and all of that. Yeah. And then this is a really important piece because Fortune states that robots and automation could potentially replace 8 million jobs by 2030. Mm-hmm. And we know that'll have a dramatic impact on our communities in particular, as many of those jobs are the jobs that people are, that they are automating. Like, for example, I saw like this robot, it's called Flippy, And it flips the burgers, at McDonald's. They're already implementing this in a couple restaurants. So people are going to have to be a lot more focused on getting education, like you said, James, on being producers as opposed to consumers of technology. Because the people who are going to have jobs in the future are going to be the producers of technology and innovation, and not necessarily the consumers.
Yeah, one of the things that there's they call it Industry 4.0, and it really is augmented reality, the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence. And really what they're stating is that in the 70s, we went from automation came in, and it displaced a lot of workers. And what we didn't do was transition them fast enough. Well, now what Paul just said is that transition is taking place even faster. So now, how do you prepare yourself to change just as fast? Because the displacement, the jobs will be there. It's just, do you have the skills to transition to them? And just what you said, well, coding is the basic. That is, I'm one of those who believe you should learn how to code. You should know how to work Microsoft Excel. You should have some graphic design background. Those are the basics, because now I can wire your mind to then take on these new things. HTML, a little JavaScript. Well, that's the foundation of coding. So now I can teach you additional codes. You can go from JavaScript to Ruby. If you know Panasonic robots, which I teach, well, that's really easy now to transition you over to a Fanuc robot, which I didn't mention because it's a competitor. But it's the reality of it is that once you have a foundation of learning and have exposure to these new technologies and the foundations, now you can transition, and you can transition as fast as the technology will transition. So have to do that, and you can't. It's fine to want to go to school to be a history major. No problem with that. But somewhere along the line, one of the things my father said is, if you can use your mind to make your money, great, but you better know how to do something, because the world would change on you, and that's really what it comes down to.
And it's important to note that a lot of the jobs that people are going to be having maybe 5 to 10 to 15 years now don't even exist. So that skill set of being able to utilize technology is very important, because as the world changes and the world evolves, if you don't have that skill set, you're not going to be able to take advantage of those jobs of the future. So we're at our second commercial break. We're going to go ahead and go to break, and then we'll be back shortly.
Drop it like it's hard. Drop it like it's hard. When the pigs try to get at you, park it like it's hard. Park it like it's hard. Park it like it's hard. And if a get an attitude, pop it like it's hard. Pop it like it's hard.
And we're back on the Let's Get to Work show. I'm Jason William Johnson, your host for this morning. And we're just going to go do a round robin right now, and we're just going to take a couple questions from some folks on Facebook Live, because a lot of people have been hitting us on Facebook Live for questions. So I'm going to start off with this first question, and feel free to chime in and answer it. Sean Rogers asked, what are some of the important skill sets that one should have that would make one more versatile, making it easier to pivot within project management, coding, and the securities industries?
Those are all, performance skills within themselves. I think that the thing that drives them and the challenge is focus and priority. If you want to talk about what the underlying principles are that are going to help you to acquire those skills, is prioritizing your life. The challenge that a lot of either working professionals, consultants, or entrepreneurs have is the management of time and the management of resources. So you really have to sit down and really think about the value of your time, the value of your energy. Those are all commodities. A lot of times we tend to think of money. Oh, I got to have more money. If you understand the value of your time and your energy, you can create money. So, think about how you're spending your time, what the value you're getting from that time and energy, and really focus on the opportunities that are out here as far as programs to develop those skills. And there's a lot of free programs out there. So, for example, we are workforce training providers. If you're unemployed or your income is under $20,000, the state of Illinois would give you $5,000 to $8,000 for training. Blue has a ton of different programs over at Emil Cambry that Emil Cambry hosts over there that are very, very affordable.
Yep.
You got mentoring programs if you're looking for direction with 100 Black Men with Jeffery's program. And I know that there's scholarships and funding for engineering and welding as well. So these are all things that we have to seek out. But it takes prioritization and starting off before you get to a monetary level with the value of which you always own, and that's your energy and your time.
Paul took it to the Ayanla level. Like, he was just, I mean, we were just asking for some practical stuff. Paul took it to the Ayanla level on him. Like, you got to get your life right. So, also, and some additional resources. We have our workforce development program at the Chicago Urban League.
Absolutely.
With our Opportunity Works program for the youth. And a variety of other workforce development programs at the league. And then feel free to definitely take advantage of our Entrepreneurship Center, because regardless of what type of business you're going to launch, but especially in tech, you need to understand your business model, be able to develop your financial projection and all of those things. And we're able to assist you guys with being able to do that. And you can even get business coaching through our center for free. Yeah, free business coaching with 20 top experts in their respective industries, be it finance, marketing, branding, legal, and you can definitely take advantage of those resources. Also, what are some? All you guys are community leaders in your own right. All are community focused and conscious. What are some things that you're doing with individuals on your own personal time outside of work to kind of help people get ready and prepared for the digital economy, either as being able to find career opportunities or as entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so I run a program for the 100 Black Men in Chicago called Pathways to Success. It's a career exploration and entrepreneurship journey for kids. It's sponsored by Wells Fargo, and it's a 16-week program. We just actually had a pitch competition last week that you, Jason, helped the winning team with their pitch. So
I educated them all.
You educated them all. He did, right. It wasn't unfair. He worked with all the kids, but I've had James out to speak, and I actually want to make sure I get both of you brothers out to come talk to the young people too. Doing that, and I've been doing that for the second year, but it's our 6th year running the program, and it's been really successful in helping kids kind of understand where they're headed forward. Also taking 120 kids to see Black Panther on Tuesday, the Rudy Loanzo School, and then another 20 with Ladies of Virtue, because just believe that visual representation of our culture must be positive. So a couple other things.
And that's an important thing to see, especially with the young women in tech and getting young, more brown and black girls interested in technology with Shuri, because I'll take Shuri against Tony Stark any day. I'll be honest. Enough vibranium. I'll take Shuri anytime. James, how about you? What are you doing in your personal time to kind of help people get prepared for the digital economy, either as entrepreneurs or for those career opportunities?
Sure. I think for me, it's been, I've always done, since my mom and dad first introduced me and my brothers to stocks and investing back in the early 80s. Yeah, I'm giving my age there. But I've always been into that, and so obviously for me, what I'm passionate about is really educating people on, and you and I have talked about it, on cryptocurrency and understanding what it is and understanding the pitfalls and this and that, buy low, sell high, because I already buy stock, I already own stock anyway, and then getting into cryptocurrency and seeing the benefits of it as well. So for me, it's really helping people understand. I mean, Jeff had mentioned something earlier that, our community, man, we're like a day late and I forgot what he said. Sorry, we're late to the game, and I think in technology and even in cryptocurrency, the African American community is like 3 years late and billions of dollars late, to the game, short. And I think understanding how it works. So that's been my thing right there, training people and educating people on that.
James, how about yourself? I know you mentioned some things that you're doing as far as your open lab and everything at Miller.
So one of the things I try to do is open the resources that I have to individuals. So for different organizations, we have high school kids that come in and we just talk about the same thing I'm talking about here, opportunities in robotic welding and manufacturing in general. And just for personal individuals, I'm kind of behind the scenes. I go around and I just help whoever asks me for help. And but mainly it's opening up my resources that I have available for people to come in and learn.
Okay. How about you, Paul?
So as I mentioned earlier, we have a TechMan program that we're going to be doing in the summer for youth 13 to 17. We also do free workshops for seniors, like on basic computing, how to use email, how to do attachments, basic security. And this summer, we're going to be doing like a seminar series to just expose people to different areas of technology that are going to be free. You can come in and you can learn what is project management, what is Six Sigma, what are the basic elements of coding, what are objects, functions, things like that. So just kind of doing whatever we can to kind of springboard people to that next level. Because as James mentioned, we got to get our community up to speed, and it starts with the awareness that these things exist and what they are. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we only got like a couple more minutes left. So what I want to do before we go, just give everybody about a minute, 45-second-ish, a little time, just kind of tell people how they can continue to stay connected with you and maybe some events or things that you have coming up. All right, Jeff.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn under Jeff Beckham, on Twitter, JBeckham7. Instagram, Jeff Beckham, and then our Facebook page for Black Box Creative and Project 905, my nonprofit. Like I said, we're doing the event for the kids at school on the 12th, and then we have the 100 Black Men of Chicago Gala coming up May 5th, and you can get information on that at 100bmc.org.
We are, Chicago Urban League is hosting the All Things Crypto class March 22nd. It's a Thursday starting at 6:30. If you go to Eventbrite, you have to RSVP. It's going to fill up quickly. We're already getting people who've RSVP'd. But if you go to Eventbrite, just search All Things Crypto or Chicago Urban League, and we're going to host a class. You're going to learn how to buy Bitcoin. You're going to learn how to use blockchain to start your own business. You're going to learn how to buy other coins, but more importantly, you're going to learn just what everybody else is learning. And on a quick note, NBC5 just mentioned that DePaul University and University of Illinois and other universities are now incorporating Bitcoin classes. So our community, we need to get on this. I mean, and the Urban League is hosting it on the 22nd at the Chicago Urban League. So go to Eventbrite, look up All Things Crypto, or just search Chicago Urban League.
All right. How about you, James?
Okay. If you want to connect with me, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. It's James Manning. Facebook, James Manning. Look me up there. So that's where I'll be.
All right.
And you can connect with me on LinkedIn at Paul Johnson, connected to, there's a lot of Paul Johnson, so the one connected to Computer Training Institute of Chicago. And then my company's hashtag is CTI Chicago, and that's on all social media channels.
And then last but not least, you guys can connect with me on LinkedIn or
live from the Xfinity Studios at WVON. We're your original social media. You're listening to Let's Get to Work with Teresa Deer on 1690, The Talk of Chicago. Live from the Xfinity Studios at WVON. We're your original social media. You're listening to Let's Get to Work with Teresa Deer on 1690, The Talk of Chicago.
She can't knock the hustle.
But until then, they think I'm the one who's crazy. 'Cause that's the way you're making me feel.
She can't knock the hustle.
She's trying to get mine. I don't have the time to knock the hustle for real.
Hey, yeah. You lunching, punching the clock. My function is to make munchin', lay back munchin', sipping Remy on the
Good
rock.
morning, Chicago. I'm Jason William Johnson, Director of the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the Chicago Urban League, and I'll be your host this morning for the Let's Get to Work show. I'd like to give a special shout out to Teresa Deer, the regular host of the show, as well as Andrew Wells, my colleague at the Chicago Urban League, for giving me an opportunity to host in his absence this morning. We're going to have an amazing show. Today, we're going to have a candid conversation about opportunities and challenges for African Americans in the technology sector. We're going to talk about the joys and struggles of black entrepreneurs in tech, as well as career barriers and opportunities in the technology industry. Joining me for this conversation this morning is an amazing group of leaders and entrepreneurs in the technology industry in Chicago. During the first half of the show, we'll talk about black tech entrepreneurship. Joining me for that conversation to be James Parker, founder of Best Date Night and Entrepreneurship and Innovation Program Manager at the Chicago Urban League. JP, what up?
What's up, Jay? I'll take Jay-Z real quick.
Okay, I know, right? Take his money.
You know,
JP's going to kind of fill a dual role this morning. He's going to help me co-host. He'll serve as a guest for this first segment, and then he's also going to help them sweep the floor when we finish. You know, he's going to be doing a little bit of everything. So, in